This has probably been one of the weirdest 24-hour cycles since the election began. Heck, probably even in the past 1 or 2 years of Canadian news and Canadian politics. There was a lockdown that took place yesterday at Parliament, and it was so unknown. The media was not really talking about it, that people thought that there was like clickbait and propaganda and fake news circulate, but no, there was actually a dude who barricaded himself in the East Block on Parliament Hill. The cops, the bomb squad, the whole shebang was there, and the situation has been resolved. So we are going to start off with that. Also, Pierre Poilievre did a massive announcement in British Columbia yesterday evening, and then also this huge protest called Hands Off has erupted across the world. We're going to conclude the video with that. So stick around, and those are the stories in the order. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And since we are talking about a loony bin who locked himself in Parliament, we do have to talk about protecting ourselves. Specifically, the best way to protect yourself in this day and age is online, which is a perfect segue into today's sponsor. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. We've teamed up together and we're offering my audience 83% off for using code SUNSHINE, which can be found linked down below in the description or the pinned comment below. It's no surprise that we're living in a time of censorship, and Canada is unfortunately leading that race because of Justin Trudeau. Now, Justin Trudeau wants to make sure that you can't see the news. He wants to make sure that you can't see certain content on streaming platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Crave, and you shouldn't have Disney Plus because, of course, our finance minister said if you can't afford things, you should cancel Disney Plus. So the way around this is through a VPN such as Private Internet Access. Now, for those who don't know what a VPN is, it's a way to encrypt your data, basically putting a cloak over you so that you can freely browse the internet without feeling like your personal information is at risk or the government getting and selling your personal information. And the best way that I like to go about this, the best cloak that I like to put over myself is Private Internet Access, which again can be found linked down below in the description or the pinned comment below for 83% off. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring this video. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, I know I've said don't look at the polls, and I've also said I won't look at the polls, but we're going to look at the polls and just look at how absurd all of this is. Apparently, Carney's projected to have like an extreme majority. It just doesn't make any sense. But if the BC map specifically is accurate, it almost could be flipped by the Conservatives. So we are still in unknown territory as to who's going to win based off of data. But when you look at rallies, when you look at the support for Pierre Poilievre in person versus Mark Carney, it's very clear. People want change, and it's not replacing the Liberal figurehead with a WEF master. It's actually changing the government, changing the entire party, changing the philosophy to a more conservative approach. And that's all the data that we really need, especially with, weeks away from voting. So just keep that in mind, folks. Don't believe the propaganda out there. Pierre Poilievre has tremendous amount of support, probably significantly more than Mark Carney. But let's shift away from what ifs and let's take a look at what did happen. So Chris Dacey was right outside of Parliament when all of this took place, and he live streamed the 911 response to Parliament Hill.
Hey, Dacey here. I am live in downtown Ottawa. Rideau Centre here. I'm just coming up on Rideau Centre. Rideau Centre heading westbound is completely blocked off now by Ottawa police. Lots of police action in front of me here. According to reports I've seen, Parliament Hill, the East Block of Parliament, has been locked down. There are police. A lot of police here, police and ambulances in front of Rideau Centre. A lot of flashing lights up ahead towards the Prime Minister's office.
Yeah, we're going to skip ahead a little bit. So they actually locked down.
Looks to be open.
They locked down the entire area of public transport. They started to block cell service, if I'm not mistaken. So this was probably one of the last live streams in the area. But as you can see, heavy police enforcement that showed up. They had the bomb squad there. They had the whole shebang. The cops had rifles. It was a very unknown threat. We didn't really know much as to what was going on. At least the public didn't, but maybe on the inside they did. And it seemed like there was going to be, or there was in motion, some form of a terrorist attack. Absolutely crazy. But you can see they are very much protecting. Right here on the corner that he's walking to is the Prime Minister's office, Mark Carney's office. And you can see just the further he gets, or the closer rather he gets to Parliament Hill, then the more police there really is.
Multiple units here. Turn on my body cam. Stand by a second. So that would be the Prime Minister's office right in front of me. Caution tape up. There's a police line. There's a vehicle that looks like stopped up here. So this would be the Prime Minister's office. Wellington and Elgin. East block of Parliament. Okay, yeah, she told me I could come up this way, the officer. Where's the cordon? Okay. And where does it?
So there was a lot of propaganda surrounding this. What was the cause? Was it a false flag? Was this something that the Liberals, a stunt that the Liberals put on in order to, use the Emergencies Act, or in order to boost their numbers and their popularity, a media stunt right while we're in an election? And the answer to that is no. This was very real. At this level, it was not a stunt at all. And here's what I actually put out on my X account as the situation was developing. So I said, so far with the information that we have, it seems like this emergency on Parliament Hill was targeted towards Prime Minister Carney. One, it's the weekend. Two, Carney landed in Ottawa 20 minutes before the alert went out to lock everything down, evacuation notice. Three, not many other politicians would have been in the area and building. Four, dozens of PPS specifically guarding the Prime Minister's office, Parliamentary Protective Services. And five, a reporter spotted bomb squad that was leaning more towards the Prime Minister's office. And so that's the information that we had yesterday evening. And here's what CTV said about the matter.
Good evening. We begin with a developing story out of Ottawa, where late tonight, police say an hours-long lockdown on Parliament Hill is now over. Police say a man gained unauthorized access to the East Block Saturday afternoon and barricaded himself inside. Officers set up an extensive perimeter and brought in a robot to help deal with the tense situation as the building was evacuated. Roughly 8 hours later, police confirming it ended without incident. One man is in custody. The criminal investigation is ongoing.
So there you go, right? Nothing ended up really happening. Barricaded himself in. Doesn't seem like there were any real weapons involved, but at the time the police didn't know that, and so of course they showed full force when they responded to the matter, because this isn't the first time that somebody broke into Parliament. Many years ago, somebody got out of like a beaten down Honda Civic, shot one of our guards, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, Nathan Cirillo, Corporal Nathan Cirillo, may he rest in peace. And then that same individual ran into Parliament with his gun and was looking for politicians or the Prime Minister at the time. Eventually got shot dead. And so we didn't know, the police didn't know, nobody knew if this was a repeat of that type of incident, or maybe something that was even worse or multi-layered. But now that the situation has been resolved, you have Ottawa Police issuing an actual statement on their X account. A man has been charged with several offenses after an incident at East Block yesterday. At about 2:40 p.m. on Saturday, April 5th, 2025, a man entered the security screening area of the East Block of Parliament Hill and began making threats to the safety of those inside. The man was isolated to the security screening area, and the Parliamentary Protective Services and the Ottawa Police attended to facilitate an evacuation of the building and the surrounding area. Multiple police, including parliamentary police resources, were deployed, including Ontario or OPS, CBRNE, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosives, emergency services, K9, tactical, negotiators, neighborhood resource teams, and traffic. After hours of negotiation, the man surrendered peacefully to police and was arrested on scene. Several packages were found in the area and were searched and cleared by police. No one was injured in the incident. No explosives, weapons, or hazardous materials were located on the accused. And so there you go. It turned out to be, I don't want to say a nothing burger, because something like that obviously is a massive risk to security. It shows people that people can slip through the cracks like that, and that damage can be done like it has been done in the past. And it doesn't set a very good precedent that this was able to happen in the first place, but at least there was a peaceful, resolution to this. And I know a lot of people are still trying to look for conspiracies in this. Folks, there is no conspiracy. A man broke into Parliament. Police reacted accordingly as they thought was necessary. No politicians were really on the hill other than Mark Carney, who landed in Ottawa 20 or 30 minutes prior to the lockdown notice. So again, we don't know the mens rea. We don't know the intent of what happened. We don't know the person's identity. We have nothing other than all of the information that I have provided. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts and comments down below about the situation. Next up, we're going to take a look at Pierre Poilievre and what he had to say yesterday in British Columbia. Here we go.
Regulatory titles. So it's like gluing all your books together and saying that you've reduced the number of books, but you might actually have even more pages if you've added more books into the newly glued collection. And today, we have more individual rules and regulations, just with fewer titles. So they've gone around the law in order to impose more burden on our small businesses, driving investment, jobs, and opportunity away at a time when we are more vulnerable than ever before. And that is why today I'm announcing that we will deliver change. And after 10 years of Liberals, we can't give them a fourth term. We need a new Conservative government that will put Canadian small business and workers first for a change. I'm announcing that a Conservative government will cut red tape by 25% over the next 2 years. We'll impose a 2-for-1 rule, which means every new regulation or rule will have to be matched with eliminating 2 existing ones. And we will do the same with dollar value. Every $1 increase in the administrative burden of the federal government will have to be matched with $2 of reductions elsewhere. And finally, to make sure there are no more tricks like the Liberals have played to get around this rule, we'll give a legal mandate to the Auditor General to audit every year the administrative burden to ensure that these rules are being honored. This will force the senior bureaucracy to constantly comb through the rules, get rid of unnecessary and useless regulations, and find the most efficient way to protect public safety and the environment. There are expensive and bureaucratic ways that involve lots of paper, and there are ways that you can do more efficiently. And I'll give you an example. When they had the Great Global Recession, the Harper government made the decision that we would fund municipal projects using a one-page application form, 1 page. And there would be 1 environmental review per project, not 7 or 8. Now everyone screamed and said, well, this is going to harm safety and the environment. Well, we completed 23,500 projects in 2 years without 1 public safety problem or 1 environmental problem identified by the Environment Commissioner. That proves you can protect safety and the environment with less bureaucracy. In other words, stop stopping and start starting. Mark Carney and his team of Trudeau Liberals want you to forget. They want you to forget the 10 years of growing bureaucracy and shrinking wages, the anti-development and anti-growth policies. They want you to think that somehow they will be different than they were in the last three terms. Now, I can't help but notice that Mr. Carney is contradicting himself again today as he plagiarizes my latest policy. On April the 1st, just 4 or 5 days ago, his government got rid of the apprenticeship grant. And today, after seeing that I support the grant and I'll bring it back, he's trying to plagiarize me yet again. You can't believe anything he says when he does one thing on April Fool's Day, and then not even a week later, he says the opposite. He is just like Justin Trudeau, and there will be no change if you give Liberals a fourth term. I have announced a real plan for our apprentices. We will train up 350,000 of them. We'll bring back the apprenticeship grant Conservatives originally introduced and that Liberals have eliminated. And we will stand up for workers across this country. Now, the reality is that Mr. Carney represents the same Liberal record of the last 10 years. He was Trudeau's economic advisor. He has the Liberal ministers, MPs, strategists, and he's now repeating the same broken Liberal promises. The most powerful thing that we can do to break free from dependence on the Americans is to unleash the power of our resources, entrepreneurs, and workers. That starts by repealing the anti-development, anti-pipeline law C-69, a law that Mark Carney announced the other day he will keep in place. A resume is not a plan, nor is keeping the same Liberal policies that got us in this mess in the first place. A fourth Liberal term will only strengthen the Americans and weaken Canada. We need a new Conservative government that will put Canada first for a change. My plan will unleash industry to make us strong, self-reliant, so we can stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to President Trump. Only a Conservative government will bring in a reinvestment, Canada First reinvestment tax cut, zero capital gains tax on anything you reinvest in the Canadian economy. This will be economic rocket fuel, especially in the Okanagan, where you've got so many realtors, small businesses, entrepreneurs who will bring their money home and unlock incredible opportunities for this beautiful free enterprise area of our country. We will also cut income taxes by 15% so that hard work pays off and you bring home more of each dollar you earn. We'll take the GST, the federal sales tax, off new homes to save you up to $65,000 on a purchase and boost home building by 30,000 units every year. We'll take the GST off Canadian-made cars to boost demand and support our auto workers. In other words, bring it home. We will repeal all the anti-energy laws and rapidly approve LNG plants, 6 months approval times. We could have enormous $10 and $15 billion projects dotting all along the west coast of British Columbia, unlocking enormous paychecks for our tradespeople and our First Nations communities. This can only happen with a new government. The current Liberal government will stand in the way. That is why President Trump has said it is easier to deal with the Liberals. He wants to keep our resources under his control and our investment in his economy. I want the opposite. I want to bring it home. So the choice is clear. After the lost Liberal decade, we can't afford a fourth term of costs and crime up and the economy down under Trump's thumb. We need a new Conservative government that will unleash our resources, cut our taxes, and bring home our jobs so we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength. It's time for a new Conservative government that will put this country first and restore the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life.
Okay, we've been listening to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre speaking in BC, announcing a Conservative government would cut government red tape, which refers to things like excess.
Why is the mainstream media doing this? He did the same thing on Judgment Day or Liberation Day or whatever the heck Trump called it. You had the CBC that was covering the speech, and while the speech is still going on, they cut the feed and they talk over, and they're doing the same thing to Pierre Poilievre in an election. Like, I don't think they do this to Mark Carney. I don't think they do this to Democrats, and they cover Democratic speeches in America. This is insane. This is like a form of election interference by our own mainstream media. Why would they start talking over him like this and try to interrupt his speech?
Regulation and delays by 25% over the next 2 years. He says for every new rule or regulation brought in, 2 existing ones will be eliminated, and every dollar added to what he called the administrative burden will have to be matched by a $2 reduction elsewhere. We are going to continue monitoring this. We'll bring you back when reporters begin asking questions. For now, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. You're watching CTV News Channel.
What the heck? And then they cut to a commercial. This is absolutely absurd for CTV to do that. Oh my goodness. I'm glad I caught that. That's got to be a form of election interference on its own.
To British Columbia, where Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is taking questions.
In sweeping manner. Even Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has said that the Conservative Party leadership is in sync in direction with Trump and America. How do you address the concerns of being too closely aligned to a foreign government that is threatening Canada and is destroying its own country right now?
Well, your question is false. Mr. Trump has endorsed the Liberals. He said it will be easier for him if the Liberals stay in power. He said it multiple times. He said that he doesn't agree with me, he doesn't support me, and he doesn't want me to be Prime Minister of Canada. I think a lot of people have to ask themselves, why does Donald Trump want the Liberals in power for a 4th term? The answer is clear. He wants Canada to be weak. And after the lost Liberal decade, with costs and crime up and our economy down under America's thumb, we are more vulnerable and dependent than ever before. And that's why we can't give them a 4th term. What we need is a government that's going to put Canada first for a change by axing taxes, unleashing our resources to bring home the $500 billion the Americans have stolen from us under the last years of the Liberals. It's time for a strong Canadian leader. A strong Conservative rather than a weak Liberal is exactly what this country needs, even if Donald Trump doesn't like it.
Thank you. We'll now take a question from the phone line.
Thank you. Your question comes from the line of Justin from Castanet. Please go ahead.
Hi there. You're cutting out a bit, so I hope this question comes through. This is Nick at Castanet. Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. We've talked to local wineries here in the Okanagan who are struggling with interprovincial taxes that are making it easier to sell products actually south of the border rather than to our neighbors to the east. This is largely a provincial issue, but I'm just wondering, would a Conservative government step in and try to break down these interprovincial trade barriers?
Yes, we would. And, you know, it's terrible that after this lost Liberal decade, it's harder than ever to sell goods and services across interprovincial boundaries. We need true pan-Canadian free trade, one single free market, coast to coast, so that anyone in Canada can buy any product from Canada. And that is our agenda, to unleash a free enterprise, nationwide economy, so we're less dependent on the Americans and we can stand on our own 2 feet.
That is such a good common sense plan that I don't see how anybody can really disagree with. We are way too reliant on the Americans and the American economy, and having a little bit more self-reliance is truly the path forward. And the only party, the only government that's going to do that is a conservative government. You've heard Trump, just like I've heard Trump say, that he really wants Carney and the Liberals to win. Either that's 5D chess, easier to control, however you look at it. But Pierre Poilievre truly is the best option for Canada. Now we're going to take a look at what's not a good option, is this hands-off protest and how it's erupted over this past weekend. Here we go.
In Washington, D.C.
So we say to Donald Trump and Elon Musk, hands off Greenland, that's an independent country. Hands off Canada, that's an independent country.
And around the world, people have gathered by the masses to decry the actions of President Donald Trump and his advisor, tech billionaire Elon Musk. From Portugal.
Freedom is at stake in the United States and for the whole world with what Donald Trump is doing.
To Paris.
He's upending economies of some of the poorest countries in the world on a whim. What do you say?
everybody else, even penguins, were affected by the tariffs.
As Americans also grapple with the dismantling of government.
Penguins were affected by the tariffs. I'm not trying to defend the tariffs by any means, but wow, that's quite the stretch of the imagination, unless I'm missing something there.
Agencies with hundreds of thousands of federal job cuts.
I haven't seen a plan that this is making things more efficient. I've just seen that it is going to lead to more chaos and people really not having their needs met.
This global show of solidarity comes as Trump's unilateral 10% tariffs on nearly all imports take effect.
What we have is we have a set of tariffs based on what they've been charging us. That's reciprocal. We put ourselves in the driver's seat.
The fallout from Trump's tariffs have been swift, causing deep declines in the U.S. stock market and stoking fears of a global recession. In a phone conversation Saturday, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron vowed to, quote, closely coordinate their positions in tariff talks with Trump as both leaders hope to negotiate better trade terms. In a surprising departure from Trump's enthusiasm for tariffs, Elon Musk told an Italian deputy prime minister,
I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America.
While the world holds its breath and wallets to see what happens next, British automaker Jaguar Land Rover is already pausing shipments to the U.S. for a month to figure out how to deal with Trump's 25% levies on all auto imports. Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
The U.S.
So quite interesting that you have a little bit of a disagreement between Trump and Doge Master himself, Elon Musk. But ultimately, we do all want for this, moving forward at some point in the near future to have no tariffs, open trade, and even between Canada and America, an economic sort of deal that would create a powerhouse for both of our economies, and that would give us the ability to invest significantly more into our military, so we're not so reliant on the Americans in the future. For crying out loud, when there was Chinese spy balloons or Chinese weather balloons, we couldn't even shoot it down ourselves. Our planes didn't fly that high. We had to use American resources. Of course, that's a bit of a joke. Of course, our planes could fly that high, but we absolutely did use American resources to shoot it down, which is kind of crazy because it was right over Yukon or something like that. And so it was over our land and we didn't deal with it ourselves. That's a little embarrassing. And so I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are with everything that's going on, with the hands-off protests, with the tariffs, with what to expect in this coming week. Do you think the stock market is going to keep going down, or do you think we're going to have a little bit more stability? Let me know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. That is the end of the video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to slap a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in another video. Bye for now.